Welcome to Bamfordrose and another question of the week. This week's question of the week is, what are the best products that you can buy for your Aston and what's not so good in the marketplace? I often get sent a picture or a link to a certain product and an email asking me what I think about it. So I thought I'd do a roundup of the top best and the top worst. But I'm going to start it off with a few in each category, and then hopefully we can get some good comments and feedback from the things that you have bought for your Aston and your experience of those products. So let's get straight into it and start featuring some of the best products you can buy for your Aston. Now these are in no particular order, but I'm going to start off with a decent tailored fitting windscreen sun shield. I'd also have a rear screen shield at the same time made up. Now as the years go by, direct sunlight isn't being kind to the interior of these Astons, and leather shrinkage is really common. It's super difficult to fix this because the leather's shrunk and you can't make it supple enough to stretch it and rebond it. So you've got to retrim the panel that's affected. So quickest, easiest thing is to prevent it from happening. Great if you can store the car indoors when you're not using it, but if you can't, then get one of these decent tailored fitted windscreen sun shields. Next on the list is definitely going to be upgrading from the standard factory tyres to Michelin Pilot Sports. Absolute revelation in terms of grip, comfort, noise level, and I think cost. You can buy these cheaper than the OE tyres. So a big thumbs up for the Michelins. Next, one for the V8 owners, lightweight flywheel, twin plate clutch, dramatically improve your interaction with the car, making pull away smoother, not making you look like a learner driver, just giving you a lot slicker, faster shifts. Next is going to be a rear anti-roll bar and drop link arms for early DB9 Volantes. They weren't built with them to give the Volante separation from the coupe, and it's easy to retrofit the roll bar and suspension equipment and improve the handling for not too much outlay. Next is actually going to be to delete something. It's a top tip to delete your tracker system. All it ever does when it goes wrong is drain the battery and cause electrical haywire. So it's best, if you're not using the subscription, to delete it. And finally, to round off my list of top products to buy for your Aston, something like this key fob featured here. They're much better than the Volvo covered fobs from the factory. So that was the good. Let's talk about the not so good. Big aftermarket heavyweight wheels. Some of them literally weigh double the weight of the standard factory rim and have got so much centrifugal force propelling the wheel in a straightforward direction that you can actually notice on tip in at speed that the car really doesn't want to turn in, just wants to keep going straight. They wear wheel bearings and just cause havoc, and some of them questionably look better than a standard factory rim. Aftermarket wheels of heavy weight, just steer clear of. Next would be generic made silencers. This isn't a recognized silencer brand. This is going to be a generic custom made drive in, drive out type silencer. I've seen some real horror stories. Tinny exhaust note, boomy, raspy at the top end. Stick to a branded silencer that makes silencers for many different automakers, or just do it our way, which is to improve power and gas flow and get noise increase as a byproduct. Next is going to be anything bigger than a 5mm wheel spacer. These type of hub-centric spacers where you have to put the spacer on, cut the wheel stud down flush, and then you've got the new studs on the spacer to mount the wheel. These destroy handling, wreck wheel bearings, just a complete no-go. Next would be anything on the induction system. often labelled GT4 air boxes. You know, the air box and air filter on your 4.3 380 horsepower V8 is the same air box and filter more or less used on a GT12 at 600 horsepower. It's not restrictive, you don't get any performance gain from it. All you get is downsides, increased susceptibility to stall and easier water ingress. Oil catch cans solve a problem that don't exist, and often because of inferior pipe work used, actually we've seen vacuum pipes collapse, causing oil pullover. Next, on the headlamps, are those kits which circulate air. I mean, the circulation of air might help to reduce the condensation, but inside the workshop we've often come in early in the morning and running all evening has been the fan, just because whatever sensor that is used to trigger the fan pack to run has triggered when there's been no ignition key on, and you've got the fan pack running on that circulation unit, and it's going to flatten your battery. Next is an exhaust bypass remote switch to control your exhaust, either in permanently loud or factory switching modes. What you really need is it to control in permanent silent mode. So that's where a three-way switch is much better than the simple remote. With a three-way switch you get permanent loud, permanent quiet, and switching as the factory originally programmed it. With the remote devices that you can buy, you either get permanently loud or switching as it used to. You really miss the quiet cold start from the permanently quiet option, and also the switching mode goes from quiet to loud at about 3,500 RPM, and if you're in the city and you just happen to blip above 3,500 RPM as you're going through the gears, then all of a sudden you'll go from a quiet exhaust note to an exhaust which is barking, probably pretty much at the point you're dipping the clutch to do a gear shift, and it's just making noise for no reason. So you might as well have the permanently silent mode ability. Next is going to be TPMs, delete devices. You know, this is some sort of connector with the wires routed so that it fools the TPMS module into thinking that everything is still behaving the same. I just configure the electronics with TPMS removed. The car has to see an AMDS laptop once a year at service, so whoever plugs into the car, just ask them to remove TPMS from the electronic config. Often a lot of these electrical devices, and exactly the same as I just mentioned in the case of the remote device, tap into wires on the car, and often they're tapping into wires that they shouldn't be touching, and it causes error signals to be transported across the car communication network. A pet hate of mine is any electronic device patched into the car system. And then finally, one that I've seen quite a lot of on forums recently, which is this smart relay to prevent any damage from happening to your ASM pump. So I think this comes from classic Vanquish days and that seller speed system which comes from Ferrari. That pump on the classic Vanquish to run the hydraulic system for the automated shift manual is quite a fragile pump, and sometimes the relay can fail on a classic Vanquish and you're stood outside the car with a key in the hand, yet the pump is running continuously, and it doesn't take many minutes of the pump running continuously before the pump fails. This smart relay, you can program it and it identifies if your pump is cycling too often, it's on too often. And if it was on too often, then it beeps and alerts you of that, and I think you can make it cut off so it doesn't run. It acts as an intermediate from the power supply to the gearbox pump. Well, on classic Vanquish the relay was fragile, so was the pump, and the system used to fail. But on new V8, the relay doesn't fail, at least I've not been experienced to it. And I've done an experiment with this on a pump that was coming off of a car, run it dry hooked up to a battery, and I think I was running it for about 20 minutes and it still hadn't failed. Sort of solves a problem that doesn't really exist on the new era cars. That's a few of my top best and a few of the not so great products you can buy for your Aston. But as I said at the beginning, I'd really like to hear your experience, so comment away. Hope you enjoyed that question of the week, and we'll see you on the next one.